Well, I got it made. They just loaded themselves. So I start walking up there to shut the gate, the back door on the trailer, and one turns around and sticks her head out, and I just stopped and stood there. And she just turned right back around, and they're both face forward, and I just walk up and shut the gate. I don't know. Maybe it's luck. Everybody tells me I'm lucky. I'd rather be lucky as good anytime. You know, they got lots of commercials on television now about the California cattle. They're happy cows, and they give more milk and that. Or they make better cheese. Maybe that's what it is. Well, contented cattle gain better too. And I believe that, and they're not far off. I don't know about their cheese. I don't know if contented cattle make better cheese, but I know that contented cattle gain better. This was 06 or something, somewhere there. And see, that's how I work a lot of times. That's me working right there. I'm watching the cattle stream in. And I'm not very magnetic that way, but cattle seem to like me. And you'll see a little movie here eventually of sorting out of this pen that couldn't be done either, but I did it. There's a nice little diagram here with everybody's favorite black cow on it. And I used to think that this was real important, and it seems like that a lot of people that I present to, they think that it's real important too. But I don't see that anymore. It doesn't seem to be so important. The important part is that you understand what you're doing when you're working outside of or inside of these areas that the animal has. You notice that each one of us has a similar bubble around us, right? Yeah. A lot of you know close talkers that get right up in your face and you can feel the spray as they're talking to you. And you keep trying to back up and get away, and they just keep getting closer. Well, it's the exact same thing with animals. And when you get a response, the very first response that you get from an animal in a pen, they're telling you that you're getting close to this green line. I call that the pressure zone. Call it what you want to. Zone of influence, pressure zone, flight, well, whatever, doesn't matter. But when you start pressuring on that animal, then you're pushing in on this bubble out here. And if you get inside that red ring, then you're going to get something that you don't want. And it's easier if you don't get that. This is normally where I try to work, somewhere along this line or this line. The reason that I do that is that's the angle that cattle generally have depth perception. In other words, they can look at something and they can judge the distance of how far it is from them. Okay? They have another area that they can see out of this one good eye, and it's about like that. Well, I guess it would go from over here to over here. So I figure that any time that I'm working where I can see an animal's eye, then it can see me. And that's real important, because if they can see you, then they're comfortable with you being there. On the other hand, if you get in this area right back here behind them where they can't see, and you start pressuring real hard on them like we all like to do, get in the pen and shove them out, what happens when you do that? So they turn around and look. They want to see what's pressuring them. What are you doing back there? Now, if you've got cattle that's turned around backwards to the direction you want them to go, Does that make it easier or more difficult to get them to go where you want them to? More difficult, sure. So I try to work somewhere between there and there. And that way I'm always inside of the animal and they always know what I'm doing. And I do my best. Now I didn't say you can't walk back here. You can. You can walk sideways and you can walk across and back, but you can't pressure straight in. Not unless you want a poor result. If that's what you're after, then that'll work. Here's some low-stress stockmanship basics. This is the good part right here. So if you're ever going to write anything down, there's about 7 things here that you need to know. Learn to read and react to what the animals are telling you. That's what people won't do. They want to go out and the cattle have got to go this way. Well, maybe they don't. Maybe they don't even have to go through that gate. But we get it in our heads that they've got to go a certain way, they've got to go on this side and not this side, and that's just wrong. I find what they want, and you can find it really quick by paying attention to it. You know, when you drove down here this morning, you're flying down the 4-lane out here at, 60 miles an hour, the speed limit? 60? Okay, 65. Or maybe 70. But most people know what's in front of them. They got a mirror on this side to see what's over there. They got a mirror over here to see what's over there. And they've also got a mirror in the middle so they can see directly behind them. Am I right? And so you know all the time when you're driving what's going on around you. Well, it's the same with cattle. If you'll pay attention to what they're telling you, then you'll end up with a good result. But most people won't. Learn to back up. How do you do that? What?
Step backward.
Step back 2 times. This is really difficult. But you can learn to do it. And I guess of all this, thrown in together, your attitude probably is of major importance. And I don't know what percent. I used to have a chart, well, I've still got it, and I talk about the 4 things that it takes to move stock. And I had it kind of in my mind that it was a quarter one, a quarter another, and the last quarter. But that isn't always right. And the more I work with stock, the more that I think that attitude is probably 45% of it from the start. So the other 3 are less important by quite a bit than attitude. You know, people, being human like we are, we like to walk in circles. We walk in curves because we're predators. And we like walking in curves, but cattle don't like that. You see, cattle have genetic material in them that came from thousands of years ago, just like you and I do. And they know that when they were on the plains, that the things that were going to eat them did what? They circled them. They knew that if they was going to get eaten, then something was going to circle them first. And they circle them and they pick out the weak and the sick, and they part that one off, they sort it off, and then they enjoy it. So, if you want a good result, then you walk in straight lines, and that's not as easy as learning to back up. But you can do it. If you don't believe that it's so hard or so easy, however you want to look at it, just go out and try to set up some of this braided poly wire in a straight line. Just walk and stick your step-in post in as you go. And when you get done, look back and see how straight it is. I've tried over and over. It's not as easy as it looks. I guess the last part of that's pretty important too, with confidence. Walk in straight lines with confidence. You see, animals read you far better than you read them, because they've still got that in there. They know what you're telling them. And so when you walk in a straight line with confidence, they say, well, he knows what he wants, and that's no problem. And even if you're not quite right, you can always back up and change it, and you will be right. And so whether you're right or not really isn't that important. The important part is that you're confident in your moves. It's not like this and hope you get something that's right. It's more like this, because you know where you're going and you know that you're going to get the right result. Always work within the sight of the animal. We just talked about the pretty little diagram there. And so if you'll stay in their sight, then you'll have far better luck. This one was a tough one for me to get by when I started this, because I always turned it the other way, that it was always the cattle that were wrong. It wasn't me. How could I be wrong? The reality is that the livestock are never wrong. And whatever result you get is what you cause. And so you've got 133 and 174 and whatever other one that you always have trouble with. Those hang on the rail fine too. And they look just like all the rest of them hanging on the rail. You know, Tom Lassiter said it, 55 years ago. He said, today's rancher and cattlemen don't have time to waste on wild stock. Now, the problem you get into with that, or the problem I see in it, is that cow always has the best calf. It's always healthy, it always gains good, it's never sick. And so I got the sue, didn't I? It's the truth. It's always that one that has the best calf, but you don't have time to waste on her. So load her up, ship her away, and that problem's gone. Now be careful though, you may make another one just to take her place. When I first started teaching high school kids, I had a kid that I could just tell that we weren't going to make it, not for 174 days or whatever the school year was there. I told the principal, I said, you got to get this kid out of my class. He's not going to fit in. He said, okay, because I never had trouble with kids. And so when I said get somebody away, they always just did it right then. Well, he took him away, and it wasn't a week until I had another one. So you see, you got something that fills that vacuum every time. But if you get rid of the one wild cow, then you be more careful about not making another one. Because if you're not careful, real careful, you will make another one to fill that void. Class clowns are kind of the same way. Here's me sorting out that 2-foot man gate. See, now, it's kind of a sequence of pictures here. She has a camera that takes movies, but sometimes she's not totally on. And so she took a sequence of pictures. And just notice how much this guy here moves, okay? See, he's still in the same place. Did you see that? See, this is what happens right here out of 2-foot man gate.